I don't like building your life around so many rules and being rigid. That's just not the way that I operate.
Right.
But I love the idea. If you think that you can afford something a little bit more luxurious, you have to be able to afford paying yourself and investing and saving first, right? Basically what this is saying is don't run before you walk, right? So make sure as long as you're kind of walking and you're taking care of the basics first, then go out and enjoy yourself. Go live life. Go treat yourself.
They call it the investing rule. Buy a luxury, match it dollar for dollar. For example, if you spend $500 on shoes, I don't spend $500 on shoes, but the example, you spend $500 on shoes, then you should invest $500.
I love the idea.
I love that rule. I can tell you that I don't always successfully do it. I try to do that rule on my own. I started that several years ago. Every time I buy a bottle of bourbon, which we've joked about how much money I spend on it, I take the same amount of money and I put it into my savings.
Yeah.
And you know what? It adds up. It really, really does, because now that money's working. Yeah. Even when I'm not paying any attention to it, it's still working. So I love this rule. I think it's a great idea.
Hello, welcome back to another edition of the Retirement Planning Happy Hour. I'm Eric Douglas. This is Chris Vaughn. We are with Family Wealth Planning Partners out of Louisville, Kentucky. Thank you very much for joining us for today's episode here. So, interesting episode today. I think
it will be.
Just like it always is, spurred from conversations with clients and prospects and folks in the community and anybody else that we might interact with, right? And so this topic came from, some conversations that you had.
Right.
But ultimately, we've all had these conversations, with, especially with younger clients. And I think that's going to be more the focus, is more or less kind of money advice or things you should know if you are a younger investor kind of starting off in your journey.
Yeah.
And part of this is stemmed by the fact that you were talking to a younger client that was listening to, let's say, conventional wisdom.
There you go. That's a good way to phrase it.
Some conventional wisdom that they've heard their friends say, they've heard their friends talk about, they see in the media, and we've talked about conventional wisdom ad nauseum on the show, and I hate conventional wisdom because it's very, very conventional and it's never very specific, right? But we just wanted to maybe not necessarily debunk, but go over some of the conventional wisdom ideas around money making and investing that are specifically tailored to younger investors, and maybe give our 2 pennies on them and see how much we might agree or disagree with some of those takes, and see maybe how conventional that wisdom really is.
Right. That's right.
Or whether it's any good, I should say. So with that being said, that's going to be the topic for today. I will let you introduce the 2
bottles of
bourbon that we have sitting on the table today.
So I've got a little bit of a theme here for those of you who cannot see this. If you're just listening on podcast, there are 2 different bottles of Old Forester on the table. Now, full disclosure, I am a huge fan of Old Forester.
One of our favorites across the board.
I can't think of a single Old Forester I've ever had that I went, wow, I don't like that. I mean, I love them all, but these are unique, and I think it's very topical to our conversation. So the 2 that we have, we're only drinking one. The second one we're going to hold for our next episode, and there's a point to that. These are effectively the same thing. So these are both barrel picks, and the barrel pick here is our theme. The whole point of the barrel pick is that somebody picked this barrel to use, which means somebody thought this was good or a good idea, kind of the theme that we're going to get into today. So what it is, we have what is affectionately known as a black label and a blue label. These were both picked by local companies. So the blue label is picked by Kroger Wine and Spirits. And for those of you that don't know, the Kroger Wine and Spirits barrel picks are almost always really good barrel picks.
Pretty popular.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, this is not a crisp pick. That's a unique part of the Kroger thing in this area. But the black label is done by Cox's and Evergreen Spirits here in town. Also, they do lots of picks. They're great. I've never had one I disliked. What's interesting about these 2 is when you do this particular barrel pick, the blue label is very high proof. The one that we're going to do that's sitting here next week is 128.6 proof or something like that. It's screaming. And all the blue labels are like that. But the black label is 100 proof exactly. But when it was picked, it was the same thing as the blue label. They were identical. They proofed this down to 100 proof to make the black label after it's been picked. So if you pick this, you picked it as a barrel strength, and you don't really know what it's going to taste like until they proof it down. That being said, I've had blue labels that I went, it was okay.
They can come in hot.
Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes they come in too hot and you lose a little bit. The black label, never had one that I did not absolutely love. They're always fantastic. They're always flavorful. They're just, I love these. So we're drinking the black label today. We'll do the blue label on the next episode, but that's what we wanted to talk about, that somebody thought these were a good idea. And you know where I got this idea from. Eric and I were both at a bourbon event this past week. And somebody brought in from another distillery, not Old Forester, they brought in a barrel pick.
We will not name the distillery, but it's
we will not
name
it, nor will I use the exact words that were used to describe it. They were not foul language, but they were definitely, let's say off color, right? I did not taste it. I think one person in the room tasted it. Everybody smelled it, and we all went, wow, somebody thought that was a good idea.
Well, it was one of those groups too, one of those local groups where they come up with the fancy it
had
the
super
labels.
Cool label on the back, all colorful. It looked great.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And that's kind of our theme today, because some of these topics, these advice that we see out there, I'm looking at the list of stuff that I found just going on social media and trying to get into the algorithm, so I got targeted. Now I can't get rid of them. Some of these are great. I wouldn't argue with him for a second, but some of them I can debunk these pretty easily, and that was kind of the point. So I have been going on for quite some time about the bourbon, so let's get back into our subject.
And just to be clear, you've not tasted either one of these yet.
I have no. I opened both of these bottles right before we started filming, so this is my first one.
Yep. Well, happy Friday to us, right?
Happy Friday.
So these just came off of, like you said, you did some research, and so we just have a couple lists of conventional wisdom, conventional ideas, 5 financial rules you should know by 30. Figured we maybe go through some of these and then go through the second list, which is going to be a little bit different. But number 1 on the 5 financial rules you should know by 30, and I'm
assuming it meant 30 years old. But that makes sense.
But we're just going to probably start off by doing some serious debunking, right?
Yeah, especially on number 1.
Yeah, number 1 is the 4% rule. Something you should know by the age of 30 is the 4% rule, which in retirement you should be able to withdraw approximately 4% annually without running out without running out of money. Now, this is based on historical projections. It's pretty much always been true. If you're taking 4% off the top, you're basically living off of the earnings of your $1 million portfolio. And we always use $1 million for whatever, because the math is pretty easy. Yeah. But if you have $1 million saved, basically you're living off $40,000 a year. Mm-hmm. Right? And I always ask anyone who's ever saved up $1 million.
I know what you're going to say, and you stole my thunder. I love it.
If you've gone to all the trouble to save up $1 million, why do you want to live off $40,000 a year?
I'm not. I mean, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, that's the first debunk. In order for the 4% rule to work, you can't withdraw more than 4%. And on $1 million, that's $40,000 a year. $40,000 a year is below the poverty line. Now, granted, you're going to be throwing some other things, Social Security, things like that in there, but who wants to be a millionaire and live at that level? Not me.
Even if you throw in Social Security on top of it, the average Social Security benefit is what, $2,500 a month.
I was going to say a couple $3,000 a month.
It's definitely well, the average is definitely not 3, but let's say the average is between 2 and 2.5. We'll throw that on top of 3.3K a month pre-tax money.
Yeah, pre-tax now. That's important.
Pre-tax money. So I mean, you're living off
$5,500.
Yeah. So
that sounds horrible. And that's a millionaire doing it. So I'll give you an example. I actually spoke with a client for the second time this week. It's a new client that we're onboarding that they are already retired. In fact, they're right about 70 years old. They've been retired for 5-6 years now. They have been with another firm for, since before 9/11. That was what popped into my head. I'm going,
9/11, wow.
Which was 25 years ago, right?
Now I feel old.
Yeah, I'm feeling a little bit old when I say that. But they've been there for a long time. They have been moved from one advisor to another, which is the way this particular firm works. It's a major national firm. You've heard the name, okay? But I've had dealings with people that have worked with this firm many, many times. I know you have too. And they are diehard believers as a company in the 4% rule. I don't know that they know how to do anything else or are willing to, because it's all I've ever seen. This couple has a substantial amount of money. They're not millionaires, but it's a healthy amount of money, and they don't try to live fabulously. But they have been told time and time again they cannot go over 4%. They had a little bit of a windfall, not much, $20,000, $30,000, and it was made very clear you cannot go spend that money on your own. You have to put it into this portfolio, or your portfolio can fail. I mean, they've had this lorded over them.
Which means you become scared.
Yes,
they're
living in fear, and it's like that's not the way you should be retired. They retired in, I want to say, 2017. So they've been retired for 8-9 years now.
So we're through the toughest part of retirement, really.
They've been on one vacation, and that was to Gatlinburg.
Oh, jeez.
It's like, come on, and they've got
nothing wrong with Gatlinburg, to be clear.
No, I mean I've been there many times, but that's the only one they've been on because they've been told they cannot afford it. What they've been told, in my opinion, is borderline criminal.
Yeah.
It's definitely unethical, but the problem here is the 4% rule. The advisor is so committed to this rule that they don't have any flexibility. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty easy to prove. You don't need to stick to the 4% rule, right? So,
and there have been a number of, I don't want to say debunkings of this 4% rule, but I think the guy that even did the 4% rule based on historically newer rates of return, you can actually go up as high as 6-7%.
Sure.
Without really affecting too much of the odds of success going down, right? The probabilities of success, meaning you not running out of money during your lifetime. And once again, people don't spend percentages. People spend dollars.
Right.
This is what we talk about this with our clients all the time. Tell me the amount of money that you're spending each month, each year, mm-hmm. right? And throw in some vacations or whatnot. But you spend dollars. You're not spending percentages, and we're talking about real life. And I just got done with a client meeting where we're talking about doing a bathroom renovation, a trip out west that they've never done.
Absolutely awesome.
Super cool, right? And there was something they were giving a little bit of money to their son, whatever. All cool, totally encouraging them. They're going to go. They're definitely going over 4% this year.
Good for them.
But it's okay because we laid all this out, and then we did it within the context or within the confines of the plan that we laid out. And so they're still well within their guardrails, and the probabilities of success are not decreasing dramatically by them taking, this big vacation they've talked about, and actually be their second vacation this year because they're going on one, actually, I think in a week or two.
Once again, good for them.
Yeah, so this is great. So they're doing retirement right.
I want to make one more comment, and this is one of those I really get my cackles up, if you will, when I hear about somebody doing this. And the reason I think so many advisors out there still subscribe to this, and you know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Is because when they get audited by the SEC or FINRA or one of these regulatory bodies, they're going to pass the audit. And quite frankly, it's the chicken way out. You're more worried about your own bottom line and about passing an audit than you are doing what is in the client's best interest. And that really doesn't set well with me. That's one reason I hate this rule.
It's also worth noting we just very easily got through our audit last year, and there was, no problems.
Exactly. They had no problems
rates,
with
it. But I will say, in regards to the 4% rule, so I don't agree with it. We've made that very clear. What I do think is important, though, that people take away from it, especially when you're younger, is understanding how money works.
Amen. Yes.
So the 4% rule, you talk about, obviously living off of your investments. But it's important to understand that even in the context of this 4% rule, $1 million, you hate to say this, right, because it's still $1 million, right? But it's not necessarily going to be sometimes enough money to give you the lifestyle that you want or the lifestyle that
depends
you're
on what you're looking for,
right? So a lot of it depends on your lifestyle and what you're looking to do. But this is obviously $1 million today is not going to be $1 million and it's not going to be worth the same as $1 million.
Right. It doesn't have the buying power.
So if we're talking to younger clients today, I mean, your goal should not be $1 million. Your goal should be probably substantially higher than that. To be very, very clear, just like someone retiring 30 years ago, maybe $1 million 30 years ago was substantially greater than what it is today.
Being a millionaire 30 or 40 years ago was a much bigger deal.
Oh, huge deal.
Today
huge
because
deal.
Simple buying power.
Yeah, but all that to say, understanding, okay, your investments can make you money, and you can live off of your investments, and how that works, and the mechanics of the way that you can invest your, in this case, $1 million portfolio to make at a minimum 4%, to be able to live off of that. Right. And now structure that in a way to make 5, 6, 7%, historically speaking, right? Obviously, there's no guarantees. We're definitely not guaranteeing anything, right? But all that to say, understanding the way that your investments make money is very, very important. Although we don't believe in this rule per se, you do need to understand how to money. We've been starting to use that term a little bit, how to money, right?
How to money.
So that's important to understand the way that it works, even though we don't necessarily agree with it. Emergency fund, number 2. This is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we need to go too terribly in the weeds on this.
No. Okay. First of all, is an emergency fund a good idea? Yes.
100%.
Without question. Now, the amount that you should have, if you talk to 100 advisors, you're going to get 100 different opinions, and they're not necessarily right or wrong. The one that this particular one was 3 to 6 months of expenses in a high-yield savings account. Okay, I'm not going to argue with that. I would lean towards 6. High-yield savings account, I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
It's the rest of this that I do want to clarify. The comment here is touch it only for real emergencies. Well, when you're dealing with somebody who's 40, 50, 60 years old, they know what a real emergency is because they've had some in their life, right? When you're dealing with a 25-year-old, that definition is a little different.
A trip to Cabo is not an emergency.
Correct. Oh, my goodness. I got invited to be in a wedding, and I got to go to the bachelor party, and it's in Cabo.
Yeah.
Or, whatever the case might be. That's not an emergency. The way that I would define an emergency for young people is if you don't spend the money to take care of whatever this emergency is, your life will be negatively impacted, period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I don't mean, I won't get that thing. I actually heard this argument made by the adult child of a client one time, but I really, really wanted to get that stereo because I entertain a lot. And that's like, really? That's an emergency to you? We need to talk, right? Yeah. So the key thing here is this is for true emergencies. The other caveat that I would put in here is this is targeted at people who should know these by age 30. When you get into retirement, your emergency fund functions differently because all of your savings effectively are an emergency fund. So I know you've had this conversation before too. You're 65, 70 years old. You've been retired for 5, 10 years. You have a nice portfolio saved up. You have a great income strategy that's been put together. Everything's great. And you still feel like you need to keep $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in savings.
You don't.
That doesn't make sense, right? So this one does go away when you get to a certain point.
Yep.
All right. I love this next one.
Housing rule. Your housing should cost less than 33% of your gross monthly income. Which, of course, would ideally leave room to save, invest, and maybe breathe a little bit, right? So what are your thoughts?
There are so many people that are what my wife and I call house poor, right? And you know the phrase. You drive around town, you go into some of these newer neighborhoods, and there's some spectacular homes.
Sure.
And it's hard not to go, wow, I would love to have a house like that. And then I go into somebody's house that I know the person, and I ballpark know what they make because I know what they do for a living, and I'm going, they are up to their eyeballs in debt, or they wouldn't have this.
I'll give you a story.
Okay, go for it.
Well, it's just from a client talking about her daughter and her son-in-law.
Yep.
And they're actually in the process of having to sell their house because they have been living well above their means.
Yep.
The son-in-law grew up a certain way, accustomed to a certain lifestyle because his parents were able to afford a certain lifestyle. And actually, to be clear, the gentleman, we talked about his job and what he's making. He's actually doing pretty well. Right. This isn't someone who's a greeter at Walmart, right? He's doing very, very well. But
he's living even better than he's doing.
But his wife doesn't work. My client's daughter, she does not work. They've got 2 kids. It was great. Don't misunderstand. But they're living in the fancy house. They're driving. They're driving imported
that one's
cars.
On the list later too.
Yeah, they're driving the imported cars. They're they're living the higher life. Yeah. And I even asked her, I was like, well, how much do they have saved up for? Because she asked how it could actually help. And I was like, well, happy to talk to them 100%. Client of a client is our client as well, right? Or the kids of a client, we treat them as our clients as well. We'd love to talk to them, but It's like, what do they have saved? What are they currently doing? And she's like, honestly, I don't think they have like much at all. Yeah. And I asked how old they were, and they were in their early 30s. I was like, okay. Yep. So that's not going to be probably a very easy conversation. So I was like, honestly, what they need to do is figure out a budget first. I mean, I can give them advice, but there's not like there's anything I can really do unless they change their lifestyle. So we see that a lot. So that housing rule, directionally, I mean, you can argue around 33%, whether that's the correct number or not.
My argument would be keep it below that. If you can do 25, then do 25.
Yeah, but somewhere.
How many people have we talked to in our careers that are multimillionaires that live in a house it's a $250,000 house. It's nice. It's clean. Yep. You're right. But they're not up to their eyeballs in mortgage, the house poor concept, and it has allowed them to build up substantial amounts of wealth.
Now, I will add this, right? Inflation is real.
Sure.
Cost of living sucks right now. I totally get it. Yeah. So these hard and fast rules, especially for younger folks, I understand you have to live in the world as it exists today. So, if sometimes you're going to have to go over this 33% number, and I totally get it. I think what's important to understand is not being so used to going over that number that as your income starts to change as you progress in your career, that you are not unilaterally making changes to your lifestyle as well in accordance to your income finally going up.
Yep.
Okay. Understand.
And you're not automatically selling that house and moving into a bigger one because you got a pay raise, and the rule is 33%, right?
Yeah.
Don't get locked into that.
Yeah, and I didn't look ahead to see if there was anything on here about buying a house versus renting, but especially if you're younger and you're renting, keep in mind that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. Don't be so focused. Don't be so driven, obsessed with trying to build equity in a home that you're moving ahead of schedule and trying to buy a home before you can really afford it, because the cost of the home is not just the mortgage and the interest and the taxes. All the upkeep to the yard, all the...
We're actually going to have that one coming up.
Okay, so we're going to get there. So I'm done talking. We'll come back to that one. So we'll leave that one as well. But directionally, yes, 33%.
That should be a maximum.
If you can keep about a third or less of your gross monthly income dedicated towards monthly housing expenses, I think is a pretty good rule.
Number 4. I love this one, by the way. What this one is called, they call it the investing rule. Buy a luxury, match it dollar for dollar. For example, if you spend $500 on shoes, okay, I want to make so many comments right now from somebody who has more shoes than my wife. I don't spend $500 on shoes. No. But the example, you spend $500 on shoes, then you should invest $500.
I love the idea.
I love that rule. I can tell you that I don't always successfully do it. I try to do that rule on my own. I started that several years ago. Every time I buy a bottle of bourbon, which we've joked about how much money I spend on it, I take the same amount of money and I put it into my savings.
Yeah.
And you know what? It adds up. It really, really does, because now that money's working. Yeah. Even when I'm not paying any attention to it, it's still working. So I love this rule. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. I don't love the rule per se, because I don't like building your life around so many rules and being rigid. That's just not the way that I operate.
Right.
But I love the idea of, okay, if you are going to be, if you think that you can afford something a little bit more luxurious, you have to be able to afford paying yourself and investing and saving first, right?
Yeah.
So basically what this is saying is don't run before you walk.
Right.
So make sure, as long as you're kind of walking and you're taking care of the basics first, then go out and enjoy yourself. Go live life. Go treat yourself.
I'll play a little devil's advocate of that.
Yeah.
Now, and this is one of the places where we're very different. I am a rule follower. It's just kind of the way that my brain works.
I'm very much not. So,
So if you give me a rule and there's a reason for that rule, it gets locked into me. I don't know. Maybe that's military experience. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a pretty good guess.
I like this one in that. Here's the way I look at it. Okay, so I've got, let's just say for argument's sake, there's a $100 bottle of bourbon that I see that I want to buy. If I'm not willing to sacrifice $200, half of it's going into my future self, but it's still being taken away from the immediate, I'm not willing to spend the money on that. Well, it keeps me from buying stuff I shouldn't.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a rule that kind of helps me out with the part of myself that I'm not very proud of, and when I spend too much money. Now, I'm not saying, okay, I'm going to spend $5,000 on a vacation. Therefore, I have to have $10,000 available. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about little luxury items that you might buy more on a whim. Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about here. I think it's a good rule of thumb. I don't think you have to stick to it exactly, but you know what? It's a pretty good habit to get into, especially for younger people.
It is a good habit, and if you're someone who needs the structure and you need the rule, then I think this is something like this can be very, very helpful. Like I said, it wouldn't work for me because my brain doesn't operate that.
It's not the way your mind works, and that's okay.
I'm also not going out buying a bunch of luxury stuff either. But I know that I have a habit of paying myself and making sure that my investments are taken care of. So I kind of know once the bases are covered, then I'm kind of okay on everything else, right? But whatever works for you. But the idea, yes, I like the idea of the rule. I don't love the rule itself, but that's just being kind of an anti-conformist, I guess. But
I believe the phrase is curmudgeon.
No, not a curmudgeon. Not a curmudgeon.
Not a total curmudgeon. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
With someone, when someone tries to put too much structure in place for me, I rebel. So I have problems with authority, I guess.
There's the real truth, right?
Okay. Hence why I started my own company, right? So.
All right, number 5.
Well, I have thoughts on this.
I hate this rule. I can't stand this rule.
I 100%.
And I think you and I both hate it for the same reason. So the rule that we're talking about is the car rule. You put at least 20% down, and you never take out a loan more than 4 years. The total car costs should be less than 10% of your gross income. I don't care which one of us says it. We're going to steal the other one's thunder. We hate this rule because
you can't afford that car.
That's right. You shouldn't be financing cars.
Well, right? I'm not going to go.
As a rule, there's exceptions clearly.
I'm not going to go that far. But if you can only afford to put 20% down, you can't afford that car.
Correct. It's too much.
You can't afford that car.
It's too much.
And this is also me being cognizant of inflation once again and understanding how expensive cars have become.
Yeah.
But I'm saying this as someone who drives an almost 10-year-old Toyota Camry who can afford, according to the rules that we're laying out for ourselves, not this rule. I can afford a much nicer car than I've got.
Right.
I won't because I don't value cars.
Right.
So any discussion around cars with me is going to end the same way. So we talk about I am a curmudgeon when it comes to buying cars. Yeah. And I learned this very, very early on in my career. One of the first managers at I think my first job I had out of college. The dude he drove an old beat up Buick. I think I might have even talked about this before. But he drove a beat up Buick. He was an old Lebanese guy. But the guy owned like 8 or 9 rental properties.
There you go.
And you talk to him about buying. It's like we used to always kind of rag on him because he had this old car, and he said this all the time. He said, "No, cars are depreciating assets.
Right.
Never put money in depreciating asset."
He's not wrong.
And so I just and back when I was really, really poor and I couldn't afford anything, I drove crappy cars. And guess what those crappy cars did? They got me from A to B.
Right.
They did exactly what they were supposed to do. I got to where I needed to go. I got there on time as long as I had like AC and a CD player. Once again, dating myself a little bit, right? But actually, cassette players. Yeah. Actually, the cassette player where you put the Discman with the tape deck. Yeah. Okay. And then you go over a speed bump and it skips.
Yep.
Yeah. But all that to say, I don't find value in cars.
Right.
And I know I'm talking to someone who has a nicer car than me, and you are a car guy. I'm not.
See, I'm a car guy, and that's the reason I am a big fan of you don't finance cars. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, but let me tell you why I feel that way. So, full disclosure, you're talking about you drive a 10-year-old car. Mm-hmm. I drive a 9-year-old car. It's a Mercedes. Full disclosure, I drive a nice car, and I take good care of it, but it's a 9-year-old car that I paid cash for, right? The reason I'm very adamant about this one with younger people, remember, this particular list of rules is for people, they should know this before age 30, right? So that's pretty young by my standard. Mm-hmm. When you're in your 20s and you first get that first decent paying job, you may not be able to afford the nice house yet.
But you can afford
the car. You can afford the nice car. At least that's what you're thinking, right? Yeah. So you're going, here's where it comes. I can afford that payment.
Yeah.
And you know where that is so dangerous of a thought. It's only $700 a month. I can afford $700 a month, right? And next thing you know, what you've done is you've bought into a car that is going to, first of all, it's going to depreciate. They all do. Mm-hmm. But it's going to take away your ability to use that money for other things, like buying a house or a nicer home or investing it for the future, or whatever it is that you want to do, you are wrapped up in a depreciating asset. And then here's what happens. If you're a car guy like me, you're more suspect to go 3 or 4 years in. I'm not enjoying this car as much as I used to.
Yeah.
It's not as much fun because it's not as new anymore. It doesn't have that new car smell. It's got 50,000 miles on it. I'd like to upgrade. I make more money now. I can afford $1,000 a month, which the fact that there are $1,000 a month car payments is stunning to me. I'm showing my age a little bit. But those are actually more and more commonplace. And at least in this part of the country, and maybe this is everywhere, I don't know. The biggest problem that I'm seeing is trucks. There's this obsession with having, number one, a full-size truck.
Yeah.
With all the bells and whistles, and let's be honest.
You live in the burbs, dude. Yeah.
Dude, okay, full disclosure, I have owned multiple trucks in my life. Yeah. I love them. They're awesome. And I have no need for a truck.
Yeah.
If I suddenly was handed $1 billion and somebody said, okay, Brewster's Millions, go blow it, would I go buy a loaded up Ford Raptor? Yeah, I probably would. But unless I can pay cash, I'm not going to do it. By the way, that's a $70,000, $80,000 truck, which is obscene.
Yeah.
Okay. I think of this rule for young people. You pay cash. You get a car that gets you safely from point A to point B. That's all it needs to do at this point in time. Struggle, suffer, sacrifice early in life, and when you get into your 30s and 40s, it adds up so quickly.
Well, it's also worth noting. I said right now I'm driving I guess it's almost a 10. I guess technically it's a 9-year-old car. Yeah. It's almost a 10-year-old car. Okay. It wasn't a 10-year-old car when I got it.
Sure.
It was a 2-year-old car. Okay. This is where I kind of subscribe to the Dave Ramsey method, and there's some I do agree with him, some I don't. Right, but on the cars I do. Directionally, he talks about buying a recently used car, a nice car that's going to, last a while. He always talks about paying cash. I'm not going to go that far because, once again, I understand the reality of the world that we live in, and everything is more expensive. But really, you should at least be putting 50% down. If you're going to buy a car, you should at a minimum be putting 50% down on a car. Cars they're just not worth it. You should at least be putting 50% down. If you want to finance the rest, that's fine. Put it on a 3-4 year loan. I'm not going to quibble with that part necessarily. But you don't buy a car based on payment. You buy a car based on how much you can afford and whether or not you can afford the overall cost.
You just said it, 3 or 4 year loan. And they are offering 84-month loans now on new cars.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Don't ever do that.
Because you'll never recoup the value of it.
No, and you'll be stuck in that for a decade.
But if you take that, if you buy that 2-3 year old car and you drive that thing for 10 years, that's probably about a pretty good timeline. That's a pretty good rule of thumb as far as cars are concerned. Because if you try to do this every couple of years, well, yeah, I didn't buy a brand new car, I bought a recently used car. Well, if you do that every 3-4 years, you're kind of defeating the point, right? And you're just going back into, just putting more money into a newer depreciating asset. So, this is just, once again, I think cars are nothing but vanity.
Oh, without question, they are.
I just don't.
I admit that. Yeah.
I just don't subscribe any value to automobiles. And once again, it's probably everything is based on your historical personal precedent, right?
Right.
I didn't grow up with money. I was driving beaters in high school and college, like absolute beaters in high school and college. There was a summer in college I had no car because I couldn't afford one because I got in a wreck like at the last day of my college in my junior year. So I'm 21 years old without a car. It was a horrible summer. I'm
in the same boat, and it's a great example. It's the way that we grow up. I grew up, we didn't have a whole lot either. We certainly didn't spend a lot of money on cars, at least I didn't, because I didn't have it. And I'll tell a little story on myself. When my very first car, when I was still a teenager, I had a 1982 Chevrolet Chevette scooter, which is the entry-level version. I didn't know there was such thing as an entry-level version to a Chevette. You know what? It got me where I needed to go.
Yeah.
It did what I needed to do. I could do a lot of the repairs myself because it was simple stuff.
Yeah.
But the point is, it was what I needed. I spent, I think, $1,000 on that car or something like that, and I drove it till the wheels fell off of it. Right now, part of the reason the wheels fell off of it is because I drove it like a combination Ferrari and Jeep. At least that's what my family will tell you. They're not wrong, but no, please stop putting so much value in cars when you're young, especially.
Yeah.
That poster that you had on your wall when you were an 8-year-old boy needs to stay a poster and not a goal.
Now, if your kids get it, when you get the kids to college and you're having your midlife crisis,
okay,
that's a different story.
That's totally, now you can afford it.
That's right? A different story, right? But we're talking to younger people here, and just do not let a car be some type of vanity symbol for you. It's one of the worst, and I've seen plenty of people just buy cars they can't afford, then something happens with the car, and now they're having to repair the car, so they're repairing a car that they can't even afford anyway, and it's just it's a cycle, right? So
okay, so that is our first list that we came up with. The second one is a little different. This was 2026 money checklist. It did not, when I found this one, it did not state that it was specific to young people, old people, or somewhere in between. It just said this is a checklist, and it gave us 17 things on this list. And as I look through them, I don't remember a single one of these being a bad thing, but I do think we need to tweak them. And I think as a whole, they do create one bad precedent. And so I want to come to that. So I'm just going to hit these real quick, and then we'll discuss them as we go.
Yep.
The first one is max out your Roth IRA.
Yes.
Now, that is currently, if you are under 50 years old for 2026, that is $7,500 a year, or if you did it monthly, it's $625 a month.
100% do it, top of the list.
I can't argue with that.
No.
Right? I could make the argument, and we've talked about it before, okay, we're dealing with somebody who is just getting started in their investing maybe, and they're late in the game, that maybe a traditional might end up giving you more bang for your buck than a Roth. I could argue that either way.
Yeah, but
the point here is maxing the thing out.
Well, if we're talking to people that are 20, 30.
Younger people go Roth.
Don't think too much about
it.
Just max out your Roth IRA.
Okay.
So sometimes the best advice is the easiest advice.
Yes, absolutely right.
Just do it.
So the second part, max your 401k match.
Yep. Get your free money.
Yes. Okay. Now, but the stress thing here is the match.
The match. Yes.
Most people that I talk to, you probably have the same experience. When you ask them what their match is, they can't tell you the number.
Oh, I think it's 35%.
And they can't tell you the whole thing, right? So, for example, it's 4%, I think, and they'll hem and haw and say, well, can you look that up? Where can I find that? Yeah. Right? They don't know where to find it.
They're getting free money, and they don't know where to, how much.
It's like, okay, first of all, there's 2 numbers on a match. Sometimes there's 4, but there's always 2. There's, what are they matching? Are they matching you 100% or dollar for dollar, however you want to phrase it, or maybe 50 cents on the dollar, 50%? There's a lot of different ways on that. That's the first part. The second part is the percentage of your salary that they will apply that match to. So, for example, it might be 100% up to 4% of your salary.
Yeah.
Now you know both sides of that. I'm starting to see more and more often there's 4 numbers. So it's 100% up to 3 and 50% up to 5, right? You should know that. The trick here, without overthinking it too much, is whatever that maximum percentage of your income is, you need to be putting that into your 401k or 403b, whatever it is, because somebody is trying to give you free money. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that you have to do to take advantage of it is to do what's in your own best interest. Mm-hmm. That's probably the biggest no-brainer that I could imagine.
Yep.
Where I do think people get in trouble is they say, well, I'm maxing out my 401k. So are you maxing out the match? Or are you putting in the maximum amount of dollars that you legally can?
And you shouldn't do that.
Right. And we've all seen that. Yep. Okay, let's diversify.
It's better than
where we're putting it.
It's better than not doing anything.
Absolutely, it is.
Because if I'm going to tell you not to do something, I have to give you a better alternative, right? But if you're maxing out your 401k, and especially, I should probably add the caveat, if you're maxing out your pre-tax.
Yeah, your traditional 401k.
401k, you should not do that.
Yeah.
Contribute up to the match, get the match, get your free money. We can't. The joke I always make is, no matter how good I am at my job, I can't give you free money, right? So get your free money 100%. But really, anything above and beyond that, if you don't have the option to do a Roth within your 401k, stop, cap it at that, because then you're going to get into, I think, number 4, which is automate, $500 a month to investments. Because now you can start putting into like a taxable brokerage account,
right,
which is going to be treated as long-term capital gains tax treatment as opposed to ordinary tax treatment, which is what you would have to pay on distributions from your traditional 401k. So we talk about this a lot, and it's not nearly enough conventional wisdom talks about this across the board. You should have 3 types of accounts: Roth, tax-free, right? Traditional or pre-tax, right? But you should also have that brokerage account, whatever you want to call it, brokerage account, TOD account, individual account, joint tenants.
Non-qualified is the technically correct name. They're all the same.
Non-qualified. You should have something that's fully liquid, which can technically serve as an emergency fund if need be, but it's all fully liquid and accessible prior to 59.5. But you should be doing a Roth, a traditional, and a brokerage account, basically in threes, right? A third, if possible.
And the example that I've heard you say many times is it's a 3-legged stool.
Yeah.
If you're sitting on a stool that has 1 or 2 legs, you're constantly having to balance to keep from falling down. But if you've got 3 legs, that thing is stable. Now you can sit down and actually relax, and the stool can serve its purpose. I think that's a great example of why this works.
And if you're doing that when you're young, it's hard to turn that ship around when you're 55 years old.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're closer to retirement. It's hard to start building up a third type of account that you've never put money into. The reason you want to do it when you're young is because it's hard to think about retirement when you're young, and I get it. But when you get into retirement, I love options. I love control. So if we have 3 different types of accounts with 3 different types of tax treatment, then we have far greater optionality on how we are able to realize and pay taxes in retirement. Or should I say control your taxation in retirement as opposed to paying, because we want to try to pay the least amount of taxes, right? But that's a lot easier to do if you have different types of accounts that you can draw from in different years, depending upon whatever situations that you're going through in retirement. Because taxes are still going to be the number one expense that you have to pay in retirement. It's not health care.
No,
it's taxes. They do not go away. So you need the best way to prepare for taxes is when you're young, and start building up each one of those 3 types of accounts.
Okay, so herein lies the first major problem. Really, it's the only major problem that I have with this list or ones like it. And there's 17 things on here. Okay, so you're a young person. You don't know what you're doing. You're trying to figure it out. That's why you're looking for this kind of advice. And you see so many, and the first 4 don't add up mathematically. Max out your Roth IRA. So $7,500 a year, that's $625 a month. Max out your 401k, save up 6 months worth of living expenses. Okay, that's a one-time thing until the emergency happens. And then automate $500 a month to investments. Well, you were talking about a few minutes ago. We understand times are a little tight right now. And if you're young, you're probably struggling to make your rent payment. So you're looking at all of this going, I can't do that.
It seems too daunting.
It's too daunting. It's too overwhelming. And I haven't looked at the rest of the list yet. You know what? I'm out. And that's, I think, the biggest fear of these kinds of things is what they don't say is, okay, you can't do all of these right now. Work towards that goal, but you can't do all these right now. Let's pick one, and let's start with that. So I would personally argue of those 4, number 1, get 6 months worth of savings, an emergency fund, because I can't speak to anybody else's experiences but my own. But the emergencies had a tendency to come in rapid fire when I was young, right? And most of them were legitimate. I have to deal with this.
Well, they still do, but we've got the money saved up.
And now that I didn't have then. They come in, and the old joke, they come in 3s, and we used to joke, oh, not in our family, they come in 12s.
Yeah.
But the point is that they are going to happen. So get that emergency fund ready to go so that when something bad happens, you have the ability to deal with it. And by the way, let's just say you've done that. Now you're moving on and you're doing 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the other ones, and the emergency happens. Stop doing the other ones and build the emergency fund back up.
Yep.
That's going to pay off in dividends. And then I personally, the $500 a month to investments, and we're talking about the phrase that we used was non-qualified. Right? It's not necessarily the retirement investments. And there's probably a lot of people out there that I respect that would go, Chris, that's a horrible idea. And here's why I say that. Save the money into a non-retirement account that can be used for other things. When you don't use it for other things, you can transfer that money into the Roth IRA at the end of the year. right? The point is it gives you more flexibility than you do the other things. And I'm only talking about if you can't max out the other ones.
That's a great point.
That's what I'm talking about there. And that's specifically for young people. Guys, you're in your 30s, you're married, you got the 2.5 kids and the 1.5 dogs and all that stuff. You have got to get your retirement savings going right now. Because if you don't, you're going to pay for that later on down the road. Okay. Let's kind of rapid fire through some of the rest of these. I love this one. Track your spending for 30 days.
Oh, I don't love it for 30 days. It should be 6 months.
Okay. All right. No argument.
Just because 30 days, things pop up, life happens, right? So if you look at it over like a 6 month period, at least you're going to remove some of the randomness.
Right.
And you're going to get more of a true gauge on how much money you're actually spending. But I will say the idea though, is that you need to know how much money you're spending. Yeah. Have a budget. I'm still amazed to this day. Retirees, people that are on fit, they still don't know how much money they spend.
No, they don't.
And then you ask them, well, what does your budget look like? Well, they immediately go to, well, Netflix costs this, LG&E is this is my cable bill. And it's like, no. Like, how much are you spending at restaurants? How much are you spending at Kroger, right?
There's the variables.
Yeah, exactly, the variable. And most people have no clue. But so you understand how much you are spending. Number 6, negotiate your bills.
All right.
I don't know why.
I'm going to hit this one a little bit. You can't negotiate your water bill.
Yeah.
You can, quit watering your lawn as much. Okay. But that's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
What I see is with younger people is, I'm going to combine this with the next one, the cancel unused subscriptions. Younger people nowadays see subscriptions as a utility. You and I had the discussion. If the world comes crashing down, you're not going to turn your Netflix subscription off because that is your entertainment. Okay, then let's call that a utility. But I think the problem that too many of us have is we get these subscriptions. The whole subscription model is the coolest thing, and it's the worst thing that's ever happened to us, right? And I'm as guilty of it as anybody. You've got so many subscriptions that next thing you realize, you're spending $300-400 a month on stuff that you could easily peel back to $100 or $150. Well, what can you do with that savings, right? That's where I think you need to actually look at your bills. The other one would be cell phone bills. I am overwhelmed by the number of people I talk to that they pay the cell phone bill for somebody who does not live in their house.
Yeah.
Well, our kids are still on our cell phone plan. Okay, I'm assuming you're doing that to save money. How old are your kids? Oh, they're in their 40s. Okay, do you pay the bill or do they? Oh, well, we pay it.
Well, I'm in my 40s and I need to call my parents right now.
Exactly. It's like, or I've seen this one. Well, I pay my girlfriend's cell phone bill. Really?
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Yeah.
Okay. If they're not in your household, stop paying for other things. I'll quit beating on that one. Review your credit report. Yes. You don't need to do this every day.
Yeah, I mean, do it once. Do it once a year.
A couple of times a year at the most.
All you need to know is your credit score. As long as your credit score is good, I mean, it's.
If you see a trend, the thing that I would say here is, if you see a trend that is negative, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What you're looking for is basically theft or fraud. Is somebody else using your credit? That's really the main thing that you need to monitor for. Not that hard to do. A lot of credit card companies monitor it for you now at no additional fee. You know, there's a lot of free options you can do out there. Please don't be pounded on that one all the time. Pay off your credit cards.
Duh.
You know what? You stole it from me. I wanted to say, well, duh. And I've had this one all the time. I have had, new clients come in and they'll justify using their credit cards to me. It's like, first of all, you don't need to justify yourself to me. My job is to help you, not to judge you, right? But they'll say, well, we've got 4 or 5 credit cards, but we pay them all off every month. Okay. That's not rotating credit. I don't have a problem with that. If I could critique that, it would be, why do you have 4 or 5? Just use one and then max out whatever points or rewards you've got. But you're not running rotating balances.
I've got 4. I've got 4 or 5.
I was going to say, I've got 2, right? But by the way, they feed into the same rewards program.
Yeah.
So,
Well, some are business and,
right. I've got the personal one, which, both my wife and I have. It goes into the same account. And then I've got my business one. So,
but okay. I just felt attacked. You said,
No, but you know how to use them to your advantage.
I don't pay a dime of interest on any of them.
Never.
They
that's
all
the
get
issue.
Off, yes.
Don't pay the interest on them. Pay them off, and then you don't have to do that.
Don't pay any interest, and I get the points.
Open a 529. I don't have a problem with that. That's great. It's interesting. It says $150 a month for your kids. Well, okay. Where did the $150 come from? That's a random number.
That's a placeholder number for this list.
Yeah.
That means absolutely nothing. We probably need to do a whole episode on 529s.
Yeah, we should.
It's just not applicable for most of our client base, which is probably why we haven't done one before. Right. But for younger clients, I get, younger clients ask about them a lot. This is kind of my one sentence summation of 529s. Pay your retirement first before you pay for your kids' college.
Right.
Do not sacrifice your own retirement just to pay for your kids' college. Your kids can fund their own college when they're in their 20s. When they're 18, 20 years old, they can take out a loan for their college if it's that important to them. There's all kinds of alternatives.
People get bent out of shape when they say, "Oh, well, we're not supposed to take out student loans."
Well, you know what? You can't take out a loan for your retirement. Right. That's the thing.
That's exactly
so you cannot sacrifice your own retirement in order to fund your kids' college. And we all love our kids, and we all want our kids to do well. And I get it, right? But that's kind of my whole opinion on 529s. Do not sacrifice yourself for the purpose of paying for your kids' college. Your kids can find all kinds of fun, creative ways to pay for college. I found lots of fun, creative ways to pay for mine. I did too. Okay. I was working, 4 or 5 jobs during the summer, when I was in college to basically throw all my money at, Bellarmine. Okay. Because I, didn't have anything and I had to pay for it all. Right. So after scholarships and whatnot. Right. But,
diversify your income. That's an interesting one. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole.
That is a rabbit hole. Listen, diversify your income. We did this about passive income. We did two episodes about passive income, and that's a hot topic. Find a side hustle.
Right.
You know what? I think some better advice would be do your job, do it well, and get promoted.
And don't live beyond your means.
You're far more likely to make more money at your primary job than you are to do some major side hustle, because if your side hustle is making that much money, it's not going to be a side hustle. And so there's too much on TikTok and social media about finding all these passive forms of income out there, and most of them are really not going to be much. Just focus on yourself, focus on your job. You'll be amazed how far you can advance in your career if you do the basic things to take care of your job and take care of your bosses and take care of yourself, and you'll be amazed how fast and you can stand out if really you're just doing your job really, really well, showing up on time and making your boss's lives a lot easier.
There it is. Okay.
So,
learn one new skill. This is another one we could go down a rabbit hole. I don't see that as a financial necessity. I see that as you will probably be a happier human being if you have other things that you can do. It just rounds you out as a person. Right? I could argue that, well, if you've got another skill and another job comes along, you can take it. But I'll go with what you just said. You're more likely to do better where you already are just by getting promotions and raises through getting better at what you already do.
I can unclog my toilet. Doesn't make me a plumber.
Exactly. Thank you.
Right? So, probably the one thing I would say in regards to this is if you are a homeowner or a new homeowner, it is expensive to hire contractors and people to come out. So it's having some base level skills around
how to do basic repairs.
Basic home repairs, right? And you can find all that stuff on YouTube and you can teach yourself. I would probably start there. But as far as learning one new skill, I don't think that's going to have much of an effect on, I don't know why this is on a money list.
I don't think that's going to affect you financially. That's
not
because it's
not so great.
It's going to be pleasing to you, and that's about it. All right. I like this next one, but I have some comments. Refinance loans that are greater than 7% interest. Okay, so what kind of loans are you going to have? I was going to be greater than 7%. Let's just start with that.
I was going to go there because I personally have loans that are greater than 7%. But you know what kind of loans they are? Small business loans.
Right. SBA. You're not going to get that one under 7%.
I can't refinance that for less than 7%. It is what it is. So that's, I think obviously they're probably talking about cars and mortgages.
Okay, so first of all, mortgages, yes, absolutely. Cars, why are you taking out a loan that's greater than 7%? That goes back to what you were talking about a while ago. You're not putting enough money down.
Yeah.
Right. That's why they're charging you that high interest. You're a risk, and they're making a pretty substantial loan to you. Personal loans, I hate those things, but they do target younger people. Hey, we'll give you $25,000, and all you need is to sign your name, and you're going, cool, that sounds awesome. Yeah, it's not awesome, right? The other ones would be 6 months or 12 months, same as cash, those kind of deals. If you don't know how those work, you're buying something usually, like, they might offer you, you're going to do work on the house or something like that, and we'll do the work for you, and we'll give you 12 months, same as cash. Well, that sounds great, but what people don't realize is if you don't pay off the entire debt prior to the end of that, whatever that term is, then the interest rate applies to the entire balance from day one, and they are almost always greater than 7%. In fact, they're frequently 15 or more percent. It's like putting everything on a credit card, right? So horrible ideas. Just don't do it in the first place. You don't have that issue.
Term life insurance.
I totally agree. Everybody that's younger needs term life insurance. Where I have a little bit of a qualm with this is it says 3 times salary.
Yeah, I don't agree.
So here's the argument. 3 times salary is you don't know what to do, so pick a number, right? I've also heard the $1 million number thrown out. When in doubt, get $1 million worth. Okay. My argument is the younger you are, the longer you have to earn money. And if you die, that is taken away. So you have a higher, what we call human equity when you're in your 20s, and you're a fairly low income earner at that point in time. You have a lot more human equity than the 60-year-old who's making bank, right? Because that 60-year-old is only going to do that for a few more years, whereas you got decades to go. So the younger you are, the more life insurance you need. And that's where the 3 times salary, I have a problem with that. If I was going to spend an inordinate amount of time on it, I could go through and say, okay, if your husband died, what would you want to pay off? And you could go through and figure it that way. That's not necessary. But it's basically, what is the dollar amount that needs to be handed to you if your spouse died to basically keep you on track with everything else? And 3 times salary may or may not be the correct answer. You know what? Here's a simple solution to that one. Talk to a financial planner about what you need instead of going to an online service and just winging it.
Yeah.
Right? This is part of financial planning, not just something you go out and do.
What I will add is if you are stable and you have a stable income and you do have some money to be able, if you're having discussions and you get this far down into the list where we're talking about getting term life policies, which you should, I think they're, especially if you're young, especially if you're married and have kids that are young. The younger you are, the cheaper it is.
Yep.
So
get it now.
As much as you can afford when you're young, whether that's 3, 5, 10x your salary, but you'd be amazed if what $1 million term life policy can cost, even if you're only making $50,000-$60,000 a year.
Yeah, they're cheap.
They're really, really cheap when you're 24, 25 years old. And if you can get that coverage at a young age, with the assumption that you'll get married maybe in your late 20s, early 30s, start to have kids, you've already got $1 million in coverage in place, so you don't have to go do it at that point where it's going to start getting more and more expensive every time you have a birthday.
Right.
So, I don't like the rules. Like I said, the 3x salary, you need to have 3x. Dave Ramsey says 10x salary. That way if you pass away, there's 10 years worth of income to replace your income. I don't like those hard and fast rules because very rarely are they ever super applicable. I do believe in term life insurance. It's low cost, cheapest insurance you can possibly get. I love it. I've got lots of it myself. But should you have some? Yes. Should it be 3x? Who knows? Maybe. Probably should be more when you're young, honestly. Yeah. So,
couple more real quick. Let's hit plan a vacation. You know what? Here's the one that young people get. A vacation means I'm going to Europe. or I'm going to Bali and I'm gonna get one of those. I can't remember what they call it. They sit out above the water and you see all the ads.
Overwater bungalows.
No. Yes, a bungalow. No.
Yeah.
No.
I want one of those.
Young, of course I want one of those too, but I'm not going to spend the money on it because I can take a different vacation. I can have a blast. The whole point of a vacation is basically just to recharge your batteries anyway, right? You don't need to travel, 16 hours in the air to get to a place where you can relax. You can go to Florida, right? Or we were joking a while ago. You could go to Gatlinburg. You do need to take time off. You do need to allow your mind to relax. Those of you that are workaholics, don't take your laptop with you and be checking your email while you're sitting on the beach every day. That's not replenishing the batteries. Take a vacation, but let's not be stupid with how much money we spend on them.
We're taking our kids on a cruise for the first time for spring break this year in a couple months. And we had to book our flights to Miami because that's where the cruise is taken out of.
Oh, woof.
And I booked the flights, and the whole time I'm booking the flights, like I'm just over there cussing next to my wife, and I'm like, "Do we really need to be taking the kids? Do you know how much it costs for 4 of us to fly these days to Miami?" But it is what it is. It's fine, But
you're gonna have a blast.
But you
need to go do that.
Oh, we'll have a blast, and I'm honestly saying that facetiously because it's okay, and I've budgeted it, and it's fine. I knew what the costs were going to be. Right. It's just when you actually go to pay it, you just I'm going to gripe about it.
I think the problem is you're in your mid-40s, and you've never been on a cruise. You haven't lived more lavishly than what you can afford. I think the problem here is...
And it's a cool experience for my kids. Yeah. It's going to be great.
I think the problem here is people in their 20s and early 30s just have this, I have to go do the biggest, baddest, keep up with the Joneses vacation. Stop that.
That's what
just
Instagram...
Take some time off is what you need.
Take some time off Instagram is probably what you need.
Yeah, there you go. Stop looking at what everybody else is doing on Instagram and Facebook and everything.
Yeah, and the last one on here, monthly financial check-ins... whether it's monthly, you should kind of know roughly where you're at on any given time without having to, pull up a spreadsheet. You don't need to do like a 3-hour deep dive once a month. That's not what we're talking about. Should you, generally speaking, be able to pull up on an app and, take 2 minutes to pull up your bank accounts and your investments and kind of see where you're at?
Right.
I know there's Rocket Money and Every Dollar, and there's a number of other apps out there. There's all kinds of different apps out there now that make it really, really easy to kind of see your overall net worth and kind of put together a balance sheet. Yes, you should be keeping track of that stuff. Do you need to sit down, and put on the readers and run through the spreadsheets, every month? No, not necessarily.
The one thing I would add to that, if you are married and you in your particular household, one of you pays all the bills and knows where everything is, and the other one is what we call the disinterested spouse. Yeah. And I'm not picking on women. We've got a lot of clients where it's the husband that's the disinterested spouse.
Actually, most of our it's interesting because we're in this business, so I'm the one that does all that, and my wife, and I have to call my wife in every now and then and say, "Listen, this is okay. Yeah. This is what we have. This is where it's at."
That's exactly what I'm talking about because I have dealt with quite a few widow situations where the one who is the bill payer and knows where everything is passes away, but they didn't write it down. Yeah. And the now surviving spouse doesn't know where everything is, and it's such an unbelievable stressor. I'm not saying you need to go do it. I'm just saying know where it is, right? Know what things need to be done. If you're the one who's taking care of everything, write it down, right? I don't mean to be morbid. Write it down. It's no different than having a will or a trust and powers of attorney. You're just preparing things in case. That's the check-in that I would do once a year or so.
And, I'll probably even add a little cherry on top and say maybe you need to be talking to someone like us who kind of does that for a living and can help you walk through that process. So with that,
a nice little way of turning that in there. I like that.
There you go. Well, selfishly, yes, absolutely. So with that being said, some of these we highly agree with. Some of them we absolutely don't, right? All that to say, conventional wisdom, these are all pieces of conventional wisdom for clients that you're not clients, but for younger investors, especially those that are kind of in their 20s and 30s. And we just debunked probably half of that. Yeah. Right? So conventional wisdom is not always very, very conventional. Always keep that in mind. With that being said, you got to know yourself, but you also have to know the numbers. You have to pay attention.
Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true. Don't always take that advice. Use your head.
Yep.
Right? Just think your way through it. There's just too many things that are out there that are just, they might be correct for somebody else, but they might not be correct for you. So don't just automatically do that stuff. So, all right.
Pretty good place to wrap up.
Let's wrap up and talk a little bit of Old Forester.
It was good.
I see two very empty glasses.
Yep.
That should tell you right there. Here's my attitude towards Old Forester. And remember, we're drinking the black label. This is the same exact thing as the blue label. It was a barrel pick.
This was the Evergreen Liquors.
This is Evergreen Liquors, which is a big one here in the local area. It's the exact same thing as the blue label, except after they make the pick, they proof it down to exactly 100 proof. Old Forester is not fancy. This is just old school bourbon. It tastes like bourbon. I'm not picking up all these wonderful little flavors. That's one of the things I love about Old Forester.
It's good.
It tastes like bourbon.
It's solid.
It's good every time. We even had the joke, I think we've discussed this on here. If you were going to eliminate every distillery there is, and you only get one, I would have trouble picking against Old Forester. And it's not the fanciest one.
It's a finalist.
It's just everything they make is good. And it's not fancy. You know what I taste in this one? Caramel, oak, the things that I'm supposed to taste. There's a little sweetness from the corn. It tastes like bourbon, right? There's nothing fancy about this, but every part of it is just fantastic. And the black label used to be a unicorn. You could not find this. And I'm starting to see it more and more often. And I almost always go, I probably should go ahead and pick that up because I know it's going to be good. And I'm really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, the 1872 in their whiskey series.
The 1870,
Or the 1870, I'm sorry.
That's basically what this is.
That's a staple in my house. I will always have a bottle of that. I love that bottle. And for a really great price. Yep. That's kind of one of my benchmarks. Like, if are you better than that?
Right.
And if you are better than that, how much more expensive expensive is it?
It's just hard to beat. This is a higher proof than the 1870, and I do like that. You get more flavor. But it's not different flavors. It's just more of the same thing.
Yeah, so it's fantastic. Yeah. So on the next podcast, we'll do
the blue
label, the single barrel, the barrel strength. That's gonna be a little bit warmer, I would imagine.
Just a
bit. But no, that's fantastic pour.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with the Old Forester Black Label.
Evergreen, great pick.
Yeah.
So
well done.
All right,
let's wrap it up.
Well, thanks for joining us. If anything that we said here today sparks some interest in maybe learning some more or having a greater discussion, please give us a call. Our website is in the show notes below, fwppartners.com. Go to the link in the upper right-hand corner, schedule a call. Website to be redesigned here very, very soon, as a matter of fact, along with our full rebranding that we've been going through since we moved into the new space. Hopefully next time we do this, we'll have a new sign back there as well. So that'll be nice. But thanks for watching. Until next time.